right, so joining me on the Creepcast today, we have writer, director, actor Josh Ruben from a new Shudder original, Scare Me, that's now streaming on Shudder. And I got to say, I really enjoyed Scare Me because it was very kind of refreshing. But before we jump into the movie, I just want to know, have you been able to indulge in any kind of Halloween activities or traditions or anything like that with the pandemic going on?
Yeah, I've been taking advantage of HBO Max and Shudder and Hulu's like Huluween situation.
Yep.
So trying to watch as many horror movies as we can. Discovered It Chapter 2 last night. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm late to the game, but this is rad. So many great homages to Dream Warriors and The Thing and the stuff I hadn't seen before. So just watching movies. I'm reading a lot of Nathan Ballingrud and Paul Tremblay and trying to like get my creepy readership on too.
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd share with you because I found myself in a situation I thought was interesting when I was watching Scare Me. We finally did something during the pandemic, and my family went on a quote unquote vacation into a cabin in the woods. And it was a week before Shudder released Scare Me, so I had a screener. So my first viewing of Scare Me came in a cabin at night after I put my son to bed just by myself, like in a corner. And I thought it was kind of funny. And I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't realize kind of how a little meta it became as I started watching it. So I thought that was just kind of a fun fact. But
I'm so glad you watched it, man. What a good experience. It's like experiential.
It's kind of like watching Host on Zoom. And watching it on Shudder on your computer. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, let's dive into Scare Me. You mentioned a little bit about all the stuff that you're watching. So it feels a little bit to me like a love letter to horror and the genre. And you have references in there, I know, from Tales from the Crypt with the Crypt Keeper, The Shining, with the Overlook jacket that I want to talk about a little bit later in your Jack impressions. So was it interesting to dive into the horror genre coming from more of a comedy background, and was it your first opportunity in the genre?
It wasn't my first opportunity in the genre. I did I've done a ton of horror parody my time at College Humor, which is sort of my backdoor film school, so to speak. But I actually, with my cinematographer, how I realized Fred and Banks and I were sort of made for each other to do these types of projects was the first thing we collaborated on was a horror short called Cabin. It was about a man that was a truly, exactly, like solo guy, going sort of mad in a cabin, theoretical demonic presence. And I was a horror lover before I was a comedy lover or comedy person. Comedy's in my bones, but I think even more so formative to my experience as, a fan of the genre was having my older sister, Rachel, just introduce me to everything from like Freddy's Nightmares and, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. But, John Carpenter's Body Bags and Stephen King's Cat's Eye and Alien. I devoured it all. I devoured it all as a kid, especially the sort of brighter films of the 80s, like Fright Night, and when, characters in the Friday the 13th and Freddy universes started to get a little more cartoonic and broad.
Were you, with those types of influences, were you a VHS, like were you a video store kid? Did you hang around? Because I love doing that, and I obviously miss it, but we have great things like Shudder that kind of replace it, but you can't replace that feeling of walking into the store on a weekend and picking out a movie based on a cover, right? Like, was that you as a kid growing up? Because that's what I did.
Oh my God, absolutely. And I can remember covers like Gothic and Shocker, and Monkey Shines and all of the great, RoboCop, like all of the really bold VHS covers that sort of drew me in. What an experience. I mean, to be able to shop like that, truly shopping for a physical, a physical object that you later, use to pop in, rewind, and the smell, the whole thing. So it was a big part of my growing up. And then I remember, like, specifically as a 16-year-old, the most excited I was about getting a car was to drive out of school, like out of the school parking lot, and make a left on Route 28 and go to Woodstock Rental, like Woodstock Video Rental, and get a video or two for that weekend. Like that was what I, as a teenager, was most excited, you know, to do. Get, you know, Howard the Duck and Halloween 5 and watch them back to back.
Yeah, I actually made these VHS kind of loot crate type of novelty items. So they're VHS cases, but inside they've got little, you know, pins and buttons and stickers and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm all about that. I got my little VHS collection set up over here.
Incredible.
So there was something that I really liked about the approach that you used in Scare Me to kind of punch it up a little bit, because you know you're watching the film and you think it's one thing, but then you get these little added extra practical effect elements, like the werewolf claw kind of creeping in, or Aya when she comes up with her vampire fangs. Is that something that when you were first coming up with the idea, you envisioned from, like, you know, a lower budget perspective, we can add some punch to it like this to really bring these things to life? Or was that something that you found later on through like workshop sessions with Aya?
From the very beginning, I knew that I couldn't afford to cut to the vignettes away from the campfire, so to speak. I knew I couldn't afford the full werewolf costume or an effectively scary one at that. So the idea became, you know, the more committed they get to their stories, the more they sort of come to life, which is your experience, our experience of when people tell great stories. You become, you know, enveloped in them. So I knew going into it that that was going to be the edge that made it rewatchable, at least for me as a viewer. Like, okay, this is the kind of movie, what would be the kind of movie I'd want to rewatch if it were this minimalist? And part of it was, you know, not just watching these you know, great actors kind of make big, bold swings, but also making it a sound designer's movie, making it a composer's movie. And that barreled us to be, you know, being here.
Yeah, I like the sound design. I wasn't able to experience it till I watched it again at home, because I was in a cabin, like trying to be quiet. And then it wasn't until I watched it at home where I had a little bit more surround sound. I was like, oh, wow, this really punches when you're watching it at home.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I really love that aspect. It kind of reminds me, you know, when you are telling stories around the campfire, how your imagination kind of takes over to help tell the story, or feel the story a little bit more. And so we're seeing that imagination in a sense come to life on screen. So I really did like that. Something else about the film is that, you know, it's essentially two people until the third act for the most part, right? How was it to have to be so dependent on another actor in a feature film versus something that's maybe a skit or a short film, where I feel like it's a little easier if you're dependent on one other person, but to pull it out into a feature, did you find that more rewarding? Was it more challenging? And just, could you maybe speak to that a little bit?
I think it was, well, totally rewarding for sure. And certainly from my experience, not only as a director, but to be able to act opposite them and encourage Chris and Aya to go bigger and be bigger and make bolder kind of choices in their space. That became the most rewarding piece of it, you know, to watch it sort of work. I think the only challenge is, you know, you as a director, as a producer, you want to make Aya and you want to make Chris and you want to make Becky and your crew feel comfortable. This is a scrappy film. You know, Aya, who we had for 9 days of our 13.5-day shoot, she got the flu for 3.5 days of that, like really bad, including when she like growled in my face well before COVID. You know, so I want to take care of my, you know, my actor and my actor's instrument. She loves score bars. I get her score bars, you know, chocolate bars, and I got her, you know, a juice, and made sure the tea was always kind of at the ready for her, that there was just consistent aid and consistent, you know, creature comforts to sort of, you know, protect her and protect her instrument, because the movie hinges on her just as much as myself and Chris, but certainly Aya. Yeah. So that was probably the biggest challenge, you know, the limited time that we had, just making sure everybody was happy.
Well, I love the chemistry you guys had together. I mean, it was the energy you guys brought. Everyone was great, even though there's only 3 of you. It felt bigger than that even. And I know you guys are friends, so I'm sure that probably helped the relationship too. bringing it to
did.
life.
I mean, we're not, we're not besties. We've known each other for a while. We've always been cordial with each other. So it was the first time we really worked together. I just completely on a whim did an episode of You're the Worst.
Yeah.
Completely serendipitously, coincidentally, in advance of our shoot. So I just knew she was well respected, well loved amongst her crew, but also that she doesn't take the gig too seriously, and that's the kind of actor I love. We're not working at a hospital, we're like creating characters in a cabin. Yeah. And I really I appreciate and love that kind of work ethic. It's just full on collaboration and love for the play.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you landed on that word play, because I feel like this thing could be a stage play, like on Broadway. I feel like Shudder needs to do some live Scare Me on Broadway event for Halloween.
I'm already at work, at least sort of conceiving what the adaptation would entail and how it would look on stage, but it's the total dream at this point for folks who have expressed it, from VHS freaks in Texas to, horror fans in our network, to kind of random new fans of the genre who've just kind of stumbled upon the movie. They've all said similar stuff. Even Emily Gatto, I think from the get-go, was like, at some point you should adapt it. It feels like a play. And it would be the total dream, and especially to originate it with Aya. But I've already, I'm like already just kind of, bubbling over thinking about how fun that would be in a COVID-free world.
Right. Well, that's incredible. You're already thinking about it. I mean, it sets up so perfectly. I asked Aya about this a little bit, but with Shudder doing merchandising now and like licensing stuff, why are we not getting a Venus book or an adult sticker book? And do we have a backstory about Venus? Because we don't hear a ton about it. And I heard from Aya that there was more of a story, but you only have so much time to work with, so we only get bits and pieces of it. Is there more to it that you thought out, a backstory behind it? And I'm just curious about that.
Yes, Venus is actually the name of a script that I wrote, I'd say at this point, 33, 40 pages of 20 years ago. 18 years ago, about a zombie outbreak that only affects women. And I wrote it furiously and terribly after a breakup, and about like literally, this movie that kind of ends with, these zombified women literally pulling a man's heart out, such a dramatic writer. But it's one of the ideas, like some of the other story elements in Scare Me that make the anthology, that were ideas in my mind collecting cobwebs, or in drawers that were collecting cobwebs over the years. So, I guess it's kind of an ironic thing that Venus was like the pinnacle keystone of Fanny's career, yet it was the thing that I never finished and thought would be, that I hit a wall. I wanted it to be my kind of, my take on, Night of the Living Dead. But I think it would be really fun, maybe 10 years down the road, even though we've seen every different side of a zombie film you could possibly imagine, to make a film, call it Venus, or maybe something, separate, to not confuse it with the Peter O'Toole movie that was so good, but to make it and kind of nod to the fact that it's in Fanny's universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Might be really fun.
Man, that's super interesting, because she said there was a backstory. I didn't realize it was that you actually had like a half script kind of developed, and it was bigger.
Oh, we shot 14 pages. The Venus section of the story that's 60 seconds, that was cut down from at least 6 minutes of the two of them acting out a very granular version of it.
Yeah. Interesting.
But too fatty.
That sets up the second part of my next question, but I want to know, how did you get Chris Redd involved in the project? And I loved his Overlook pizza jacket, and so that's why I wanted to ask. He was wearing that in the film. Did you get to keep it? If not, can I have it? Like, where did that go, and how did he get involved?
My cinematographer would kill me for not knowing off the top of my head what the name of the printing company was. But there's a printing company based out of Rhode Island that made the jacket for us. And my brilliant clothing designer, brilliant wardrobe designer, Sean Dermond, he was the one who added like the little details, like "Tell him Jack sent you" is a quote on the back of that jacket. I was like, if and ever we have a premiere, I want to wear that jacket. But Brendan was very sweet. I think he gave it back to, or gifted it back to, the guys who made it.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is very, very.
Yeah, I loved Aya's shirt too. It was pretty sweet since you brought up the costume design. But yeah, I loved her shirt too.
Oh my God! Yeah, people love the sweatshirt. She megshops.com. But if everyone's like, where can I get that exact thing? I feel like at this point there's going to be some replica.
I figured it was from a place that existed already, but I wasn't sure. So you said it's Meg Shops?
Megshops.com. Yeah.
Okay.
So Meg Shop in New York City, that's the vintage clothing store, but it's a one of a kind.
Oh, that's cool.
We were worried for a split second. We were like, is this a branded thing that we don't have the money to like clear? But it's a one of a kind.
I feel like we're just coming up with all kinds of Shudder merchandise for this movie right now. I mean, socks could be on that, sweaters. Dude,
I gotta say, there's a great artist on Instagram, Jackie Torres, who made some stickers, who made some character designs rather that I've licensed from her to do stickers. So I have a little merch shop called the Mind House on TeePublic, where people can go and buy a Fred sticker, Carlos sticker, or a Fanny sticker, and there's more cool stuff coming down the pipeline too. Yeah,
that's cool. Kind of a follow-up. So you mentioned some kind of exploration with Venus, and you had shot some stuff and it got cut. So that brought me to special features, right? Like I heard that Chris did some incredible improv takes that just went on for like 15 minutes that you obviously can't put in the film. Do you think we'll see some of those takes, or maybe even some of the stuff you cut from Venus on like a Blu-ray special feature? That's one thing I miss about the VHS store and like VHS, right? Or Blu-ray, DVD that you get special features. So
yeah, the iTunes package. We're trying to assemble something of it. If I don't know, I guess we'd have to find like the original drive, and I don't know if we have to get our editor involved, Patrick Lawrence. I'm sure he'd be happy to, but there is indeed a 12-minute, 15-minute take of Chris Redd acting out a whole murder sequence when we first meet him. Oh, it'd be a perfect night to do it. And he enacts like, a Zodiac kill with a silencer, putting a body in a car, sending that car off the bridge, strangling, chainsaws. And we just like have him go and go and go. And then too, there's like a precursor to the musical sequence. The three of us are sitting on the couch and like almost chanting this sort of goading of Fred to play the devil in the Devil Singer sequence. So yeah, I would love to find, at the very least, Carlo's improv, Chris's improv was out of control.
I feel like you've almost got an entire short film just for that.
yeah.
It's like a whole nother segment that's a short film. Well, I will kind of want to wrap this up a little bit and ask, I feel like I got you on the podcast. I need to ask, when you do a movie like Scare Me, you have to tell me about some scary story that you've experienced, or something that maybe got passed around as a kid. Was it an urban legend, a ghost story? Was there a paranormal experience? Is there anything you can share with us to scare us, if you will?
Well, I have two. They're scary in different ways. The one I would make up, the more supernatural one, was so I never really had a ghost experience, and I'm one of those people that is desperate for it to happen to them. But the one I would tell people is actually sort of loosely based on, or the nucleus of the idea behind the grandpa story, which is I just would tell people that when I was home alone, I saw a mangy dog, after hearing noises upstairs, make its way like hobbling down the stairs and out the back door of our house. And then I didn't know how it got there, and like basically would tell the like ghost dog story, which is like barely a story at all. The Ghost Dog's also a great Forest Whitaker movie. So that was just one I'd make up and tell people. So that did not happen.
It's like scary stories to tell in the dark, like entry.
Yeah. It kind of feels like that. But one that I mean, a terrifying thing that happened to me was I was in Austin my first time. I think it was my first time in Austin at South by. I used to have a podcast, or one that's kind of dormant right now, called the Mind House Podcast, and my girlfriend at the time and I were in an Uber on the way back to our place, and he exhibited very unusual behavior and dropped us off. I insisted he drop us off like a block away from our place, and he like circled the block, and so we had to like hide behind a fence.
That's
the
weird.
high beams like cut through the slats of the fence, and then we like scrambled up the stairs when he disappeared, and we like got back into this rental and didn't turn any lights on and watched as the car circled again. And I was just like, no, yeah. And he was like a college kid, very strange looking, kind of Philip Seymour Hoffman-y type dude. And I was just like, I'm good.
No influence on the driver in the film, I assume.
No, the driver in the film is based on almost, I think, word for word, a pitch from a driver upstate who once picked me up. I had finished a job, and so they paid for a car service from like Newark Airport to part of the upstate region, and he was pitching me on a screenplay idea that James Cameron would love if he could just get it on his desk. And then started telling me about, all the financial mistakes he made and about his crumbling marriage, how he lived with his parents. I was like, this is incredible. This is too much. I can't not put this in a movie.
I feel like I had a very similar experience that you just mentioned in Austin, ironically, with the same type of job. It's bizarre. I guess that's Austin, right? Keep it weird. So
keep it weird.
They're doing it.
Keep it freaky. Yeah.
I do love Austin, though. But, well, Josh, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to talk about Scare Me today. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I hope everyone checks it out on Shudder. It's available right now. It's a great Halloween movie to put on and have some fun with friends if you're going to have them around. Hopefully you're quarantined, but whatever. Watch it on Zoom. Before I let you go, is there anything else you have that you're working on right now that you can tell us about?
My second movie, we just wrapped post on it, and hopefully there'll be a trailer in the coming months, if not years. But it's called Werewolves Within, and stars Sam Richardson. That's probably about all I can say about it. But keep an eye out for Werewolves Within, but not before checking out Scare Me on Shudder.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and have a great Halloween.
Yeah, my pleasure. Same to you, all of you. Keep it weird.
Bye, man. Thank you.